Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we really get into it, plunging headfirst into a single complex subject. We dissect its layers, explore all those hidden corners, pull out those fascinating bits of knowledge that make you feel truly informed.
Hmm.
Today, our focus is squarely on a monumental piece of art. Caravaggio's absolutely undisputed masterpiece, The Calling of St. Matthew.
A fantastic choice. Truly iconic.
It really is. And we've gathered a fantastic amount of comprehensive source material for this exploration, which is great because it lets us really delve into, well, pretty much every brushstroke and symbolic detail.
Indeed. And this isn't just, another painting to look at from afar. It's genuinely a pivotal moment in art history.
Right.
It's a work that still resonates, still connects with universal human experiences, even centuries after it was painted.
Right.
So our goal today really is to move beyond just that surface level appreciation. We want to properly understand the intricate layers of meaning, the truly groundbreaking techniques he used, and the profound historical context that makes this piece so extraordinary.
Absolutely. Our mission, if you like, is to unpack not just what this painting shows us, but why it sparked such a revolution in art and how it still speaks to us across all these centuries, and the really surprising depth of its message about, well, human nature, divine intervention, all of it.
Hmm.
Have you ever stood in front of an old master painting and just wondered about the stories woven into the canvas? Or maybe how something so old can still feel so incredibly real, almost immediate?
Yeah.
Well, get ready, because that's exactly the journey we're about to take.
And from its revolutionary use of light, that famous chiaroscuro or tenebrism, to the profound psychological depths you see in the figures. This deep dive should give you a really fascinating window into a key moment in both art history and, frankly, the history of faith.
Okay.
We'll trace the threads, from the canvas itself out into the broader historical and cultural tapestry of the time. We'll see how this painting became a kind of mirror, reflecting a society that was really in flux, and also a beacon for artistic innovation to come.
Okay, so let's set the scene then. Before we even really get to the painting itself, we need to understand the world Caravaggio was living in and, the artistic climate around the late 16th, early 17th centuries.
Right, context is key here.
So who was this guy? Michelangelo Maurizio da Caravaggio, born 1571, died way too young in 1610. What was the artistic landscape like around 1600? That's the year this masterpiece, The Calling, was completed. He was, there's no doubt, one of the most influential, most innovative figures of Italian Baroque art, full stop.
Absolutely, a game changer.
And this painting, The Calling of St. Matthew, it was unveiled right around the turn of the century, 1600, give or take. It was one of 3 massive canvases commissioned for the Contarelli Chapel, which is inside the San Luigi dei Francesi Church in Rome. Still there today.
Which is incredible. You can still see it in situ.
It really is, and it's got this dual significance, doesn't it? It's a powerful religious story, obviously, but it's also just a prime, groundbreaking example of the formal and thematic innovations that really came to define the whole Baroque period.
To really get Caravaggio's genius, you absolutely have to place him firmly within that intense historical and spiritual backdrop of 17th century Italy. It was an era that was profoundly, almost inescapably shaped by the Counter-Reformation.
Okay, the Counter-Reformation. Let's unpack that a little.
Right. So this was basically the Catholic Church's big, robust, sometimes pretty forceful response to the Protestant Reformation, which had, completely redrawn the religious map of Europe. The Church had this really pressing objective to reassert its authority, definitely, but also to kind of reinvigorate religious belief among ordinary people, and crucially to draw them back, particularly the common folk, to the core ideas of Catholic teaching. It was a time of sort of spiritual renewal, but also a consolidation of power.
So art then wasn't just for decoration or even just teaching Bible stories. It became something more instrumental, like a tool.
Exactly, a powerful tool. You can even say art became the Church's most potent propaganda weapon. In a way, it wasn't enough anymore for art just to be beautiful or illustrative.
Right.
It was specifically designed, commissioned, to provoke a direct, almost visceral, and incredibly effective emotional impact on whoever was looking at it. The goal was to move the soul, stir up piety, inspire genuine feeling and devotion, not just, tickle the intellect.
Okay.
And that really required a dramatic shift towards art that was more dynamic, more emotionally charged, and importantly, more immediately relatable.
And that's where Caravaggio comes in.
Precisely. This is where he emerges as this just unparalleled pioneer. He didn't just paint, You know, idealized figures floating on clouds or complex symbolic allegories, which was kind of the tail end of the high Renaissance trend.
Right, very different feel.
Totally different. He completely revolutionized this new artistic language.
Right.
He did it by seamlessly integrating these sacred biblical stories with this almost shocking, sometimes really unvarnished realism, drawn straight from daily life in Rome. And maybe most importantly, he gave his figures this profound psychological depth. He wasn't just showing what happened. He was exploring the inner lives, the feelings, the reactions of the people involved. He didn't just depict, he connected deeply.
Wow.
Think of it less like a static painting and more like a, I don't know, a really dramatic, immersive film scene, something designed to speak right to your heart, pull you into the moment. He literally dragged the divine down to earth, into the smoky tavern, the dimly lit room, the bustling street corner. He made the miraculous feel immediate, tangible, like it could happen to you.
That's fascinating. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Let's zoom right in on the actual scene in The Calling of St. Matthew. What exactly are we looking at here? What's this frozen moment? The sources tell us it's pulled straight from the Gospels, right? Luke 5 and Matthew 9.
That's correct. Both mention the calling.
And the central figure, Matthew, before this big moment, he was a tax collector. Now, back then, tax collectors, they weren't popular figures.
Not at all. Quite the opposite.
Widely seen as sinners, often corrupt, basically collaborators extorting money for the Romans. They were really on the fringes of acceptable society.
Absolutely. Social outcasts in many ways.
So the core message here, Jesus just walking in and calling him Matthew, it becomes incredibly powerful, revolutionary even. It symbolizes that even the biggest sinners, the most outcast people, they aren't beyond God's grace. They can still find salvation.
Precisely. It's a radical message of inclusivity in a sense.
Yeah. So it's all about transformation, faith, overcoming social barriers, and ultimately salvation.
And this is where Caravaggio's genius just takes your breath away. He anchors this profoundly sacred moment in this startling, almost jarring realism. The scene isn't happening in some, ethereal, heavenly place.
No clouds or golden light everywhere?
No, not at all. It's unmistakably Matthew's working room. A dark, maybe even slightly grubby corner of a Roman customs house or counting house. You see him totally absorbed, doing the most mundane earthly thing. Counting money, keeping accounts. He's surrounded by his assistants, other tax collectors.
Right there in the thick of it.
Exactly. That choice immediately grounds the divine right in the everyday, makes it incredibly relatable, immediate for the viewer. Then Jesus enters, subtly but powerfully, from the far right.
Right?
He comes out of this deep shadow, moving into this dramatic shaft of light that cuts diagonally right across the canvas. His approach is quiet, almost understated, but his gesture is everything.
The pointing hand.
That outstretched hand reaching directly towards Matthew. And his gaze is fixed right on him. Very intense. And this isn't just, him pointing a finger. It's widely interpreted, even then, as God's hand of salvation reaching out. A tangible embodiment of the divine call, directed at this one specific, very unlikely individual. It's the instant grace crashes into the mundane world.
But Matthew's reaction, it's not simple, is it? He doesn't just immediately jump up and say, "Yes, Lord."
No, absolutely not. And that complexity is a huge part of the painting's enduring power and its psychological depth. Matthew's reaction is this incredible mix of surprise, confusion, maybe even disbelief, and profound hesitation.
You can really see it on his face.
You really can. He's caught mid-action.
Yeah.
His right hand is still kind of resting on the pile of coins on the table, almost protectively. But his left hand gestures towards himself, like he's asking, "Who? Me?
Yeah.
Are you really calling me?"
Yeah, that "are you sure" mode.
Exactly. He's half rising from his seat. His whole body language is showing this internal struggle. It's like he's suddenly grasping a truth he'd never even considered before, a revelation that's literally hitting him with the force of that light.
Wow.
This is that profound aha moment. But it's not simple. It's not straightforward. It's a moment of deep internal debate, a conflict between his comfortable, maybe morally dodgy present life and this totally unknown, demanding future that's just opened up.
I mean, you can almost feel it.
Yeah, imagine that feeling. Your entire worldview, your whole purpose in life, suddenly, uncomfortably, undeniably shifting in an instant because of this unexpected, undeniable call. That visible hesitation, that moment of decision, that inner wrestling. That's what makes Matthew so incredibly human, so relatable even today. We've all faced those moments, maybe not as dramatic, but moments where an unexpected call or challenge forces us to rethink everything.
It's really captivating how he portrays such an intimate internal battle right there on the canvas. So, okay, Beyond the sheer drama of the story itself, how does Caravaggio use the figures, their arrangement, where they are, how they look, even what they're wearing to tell this powerful story?
Mm-hmm. The composition is masterful.
The sources really emphasize this interplay between the main figures, Jesus, obviously Matthew himself, and then there's that young assistant seated right next to Matthew, the one looking up.
Yeah, those three form a key triangle.
And it's surely no accident that Jesus' face and that pointing hand are the very first things hit by the light. It just immediately draws your eye right to him, to the source of the call, like a spotlight.
Absolutely deliberate. Guides the viewer's gaze.
And Jesus himself, he's depicted with this calm, almost understated but intensely determined posture. His left hand is firmly pointing right at Matthew. It really emphasizes the certainty, the specificity of the command. There's no doubt who he's calling.
None at all. The call is clear, direct.
Yet the person being called is full of doubt.
And that's the crux of it. What's truly fascinating is the sheer psychological depth Caravaggio pours into Matthew's expression. It's way more than just surprise. It's this incredibly complex state. You see astonishment, almost disbelief, but also that deep, almost palpable hesitation.
Yeah, you can see the wheels turning.
Definitely. His brow is furrowed, his eyes are wide, his lips slightly parted like a silent gasp. You can literally see the internal struggle playing out on his face. It's a battle between the lure of his material world, those coins right under his hand, and the spiritual imperative of Jesus' invitation. This isn't an immediate yes. It's the start of a profound, life-altering internal debate.
And what about the other guys at the table?
Right, then you shift your gaze to them, Matthew's fellow tax collectors, and they are depicted with this startlingly unidealized, strikingly realistic look. These are clearly just ordinary guys from that era.
Not angels or idealized saints.
Not at all. They're in their everyday clothes, their expressions, their postures feel completely authentic, unglamorized. Caravaggio's approach here was just, well, revolutionary for the time. By painting these sacred stories with such realism, making the figures look like people you might pass on the street in Rome.
Yeah.
He made the whole religious narrative immediate, closer, much more tangible to the average viewer. You literally see yourself, or maybe someone you know, in these faces, in their different reactions. It kind of democratized the divine encounter, brought it down to their level.
It's like he's pulling you right into the scene, isn't it? Making you almost wonder, what would my reaction be if I was sitting there at that table?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And the composition itself, the way he places these figures, their different gaze directions, their subtle body language, it all meticulously weaves together this coherent narrative fabric. Jesus' call starts with Matthew, obviously, but its effect isn't just isolated to him. It powerfully ripples outwards, spreading through the whole painting, affecting everyone there in different ways.
How so?
Well, look at the other tax collectors. Their expressions range quite widely. You've got the young, sort of dapper-looking guy on the far left, totally engrossed in counting money, seemingly oblivious to this huge event happening right next to him.
Head down, focused on the cash.
Right. Then others show maybe mild curiosity. Some look genuinely amazed, maybe even a bit skeptical or confused. And importantly, some of their faces, especially towards the left edge, remain deeply shrouded in shadow.
Ah, the darkness again.
Yes. And that's not just about lighting technique. It profoundly symbolizes resistance, or maybe just hesitation, on the path of faith. It demonstrates the many ways people can react when they're confronted with this sudden, profound call for change, something that challenges their whole way of life. It's this compelling spectrum of human response to the divine, all contained within one incredibly charged canvas.
Okay, let's dig into the technique a bit more, because there's something incredibly dramatic, almost theatrical, about the way Caravaggio uses light. What exactly is going on with all that darkness surrounding the figures?
Is his signature.
The defining technical feature of this painting, and really so much of Caravaggio's most famous work, is something called tenebrism. Is that right?
Tenebrism, yes. Or sometimes just called dramatic chiaroscuro.
And it's this extreme emphasis on the contrast between light and dark, like really extreme, violent contrasts almost used to heighten the drama.
Exactly.
When you look at the calling, the background is just gone. It's almost completely swallowed by deep shadow, like an abyss. But against that darkness, the figures are lit up as if by a single really powerful beam of light slashing diagonally across from somewhere high up, above Jesus. It's incredibly striking, almost like a spotlight on a dark stage.
You've nailed its visual effect perfectly.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to understand this isn't just a visual trick or some stylistic trick. Caravaggio's use of light, this tenebrism, serves a profound dual function.
Yeah.
It's intensely visual, yes, but it's also deeply narrative and symbolic.
Okay, how so? Symbolic of what?
Well, the light itself generally represents the divine, the
Hmm.
sacred call, the revelation of truth, God's grace literally penetrating the darkness of the mundane world. The darkness, that pervasive shadow, symbolizes the world, sin, spiritual ignorance, maybe the moral ambiguity of Matthew's old life.
Interesting.
And look closely, you'll notice the light doesn't seem to be coming from an obvious natural source within the room, like a window or a lamp.
No, you can't see a window there.
Right. It seems to emanate from Jesus himself, or at least enter with him, specifically from his outstretched hand and his illuminated face. This suggests it's not just physical illumination, it's a spiritual awakening, a moment of awareness, divine intervention made visible, made manifest.
Wow.
And Matthew's hesitant face, caught right in that pivotal moment of decision, is literally shaped and defined by the effect of this divine light. It's pulling him out of the shadows. Conversely, those figures on the far left, still hunched over their money.
Yeah, the oblivious ones.
They remain firmly in spiritual darkness, physically in shadow. It symbolizes their current state, their unawakened spiritual understanding, or perhaps their choice to remain there.
So the light itself isn't just showing us things, it's actively telling a crucial part of the story.
Precisely. This dramatic lighting doesn't just create visual impact. It directly conveys the emotional weight, the theological depth of the story, right to the viewer. It's designed to make you feel the significance of this divine encounter, to be enveloped by its drama and its spiritual tension.
Amazing. Are there other technical aspects besides the light?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Beyond the tenebrism, his technical mastery shows in other ways, too. He uses a remarkably limited but incredibly powerful color palette. It's dominated by deep, earthy tones, rich browns, muted greens, dark reds, grays.
Not a lot of bright, flashy colors.
No, very restrained. And this palette further intensifies the drama. It ensures our attention stays focused primarily on the illuminated figures and their expressions, rather than getting distracted by, say, vibrant clothes.
Okay.
His brushstrokes, too. From a distance, they might look broad, almost soft, but up close, they're incredibly strong and precise. He creates this remarkable realism in the texture of skin, the heavy folds of fabric, the dull gleam of metal coins.
You feel like you could almost touch them.
You do.
Yeah.
And that deep, almost impenetrable dark background isn't just for mood. It's a very deliberate compositional choice. It ensures our focus remains entirely on that central narrative. It prevents any background clutter from distracting us, and it pulls our eye directly into the heart of this sacred drama unfolding. It creates this almost claustrophobic intensity.
Okay, stepping back a bit then. How did this painting fit into its wider socio-cultural moment?
Hmm.
Why was this intense, realistic style so, well, groundbreaking for its time? And how did it impact the broader art world? We're talking 17th century Italy here. Our sources describe it as a really dynamic religious and political period, a real crucible of change.
Very much so. A time of great upheaval and energy.
And as we mentioned earlier, the Counter-Reformation was in full swing, really shaping what society, and especially the church, wanted from art. The Catholic Church, responding directly to the Protestant Reformation, needed to re-emphasize the power of art. Art as a way to instruct, yes, but also to create a strong emotional appeal.
Right. They were actively looking for more effective ways to connect.
Exactly. More emotionally resonant artistic expressions to draw people back into the Catholic fold. And Rome, with all its money and power and patronage, that was the absolute epicenter of this whole artistic and religious movement.
This period undeniably gave birth to Baroque art. And the core characteristics of Baroque are that sense of movement, intense drama, those powerful light-dark contrasts we've been talking about, and an overwhelming emotional intensity.
Right. Big emotions, big gestures.
Often, yes. These elements are paramount. They were specifically designed to captivate the viewer, to move them deeply, to kind of bypass intellectual analysis and go straight for the heart, for the soul. But while many other Baroque artists focused on grandiosity, maybe swirling forms, idealized figures floating in glory, Caravaggio carved out his own distinct path.
How was his approach different?
His utterly revolutionary contribution was grounding this Baroque drama primarily in physical and psychological realism. This was the radical departure. Instead of painting sacred figures as, distant, ethereal beings wrapped in divine mystery floating on clouds.
Like you often saw before.
Exactly. Caravaggio portrayed them as strikingly realistic, sometimes even gritty individuals. They felt relatable. They seemed connected to the real human inner world, to the messy realities of daily life in Rome.
Wow.
This wasn't just a stylistic choice he made. It was a profound shift in how religious stories were being communicated and how people were meant to experience them. He brought the sacred right down into the tangible physical world.
So it really did make the divine feel more immediate, more accessible, especially for the common person, maybe?
Exactly right. The societal impact was huge. By making his saints, and even Christ himself, resemble ordinary people, tax collectors, gamblers, peasants, street vendors, guys with dirty feet, these religious narratives suddenly became incredibly accessible to all segments of society, not just the educated elite or the clergy who could read Latin. This directly served the Church's aims during the Counter-Reformation. The goal was for the public, for ordinary people, to literally see themselves in these sacred stories, in these calls to faith. To feel that divine grace wasn't some abstract concept, but something immediate, within reach, regardless of their social standing or their past sins.
That's powerful.
It really is. And this stark, unflinching realism marked such a clear, decisive break from the generally idealized, often serene, and maybe somewhat distant figures of the High Renaissance. Think of Raphael or Leonardo, works of incredible beauty and harmony, no doubt.
Of course.
But their figures often seem to exist in a more perfect, idealized realm. Caravaggio's art, in contrast, felt raw and immediate. It was truly art for the common person, designed to speak directly to their hearts and minds, to immerse them right in the drama of salvation. He wasn't just showing you a story, he was making you feel like you were in it.
Thinking about the bigger picture then, why does the calling of St. Matthew still get so much attention today? What's its lasting legacy? How did Caravaggio's innovations really ripple outwards and affect European art for centuries? It's clearly seen as one of the most important examples of Baroque art, both for its themes and its techniques.
Its influence is just monumental. It resonates across centuries, across continents. Caravaggio's groundbreaking use of light, that tenebrism, his unflinching realism, and his unparalleled genius for creating dramatic, immediate narratives. It inspired countless painters all across Europe for generations after him.
Who are some of the artists influenced by him?
Oh, you see his influence in artists like Rembrandt, Velázquez, Latour, Gentileschi, many of the greats of the 17th century and beyond. They eagerly studied his tenebrism, his revolutionary way of plunging backgrounds into darkness to sculpt figures with light and heightened drama. They emulated his incredible ability to capture raw, unvarnished human emotion and that deep psychological complexity. And specifically for Counter-Reformation art, this painting really embodied the whole spirit of the movement. By making the religious experience feel so personal, so immediate, so deeply emotional through its direct appeal, it became a kind of foundational model for how art could effectively serve the Church's renewed mission of spiritual re-engagement.
Right.
Caravaggio's artistic language, uniquely, sort of blurred the lines between the sacred and the worldly, didn't it? He seamlessly integrated these profound religious experiences with the gritty realities of daily life. He showed that divine moments don't just happen in grand temples or up in the clouds, but they can happen right here, in humble, even kind of unsavory settings, like a tax collector's dimly lit office. That's where art really transcends just being a picture and becomes something truly profound, like a bridge between two different worlds.
So it's really not just a religious painting in the way we might traditionally think of one. It's also this profound study of humanity, an examination of the human psyche itself.
Precisely. That psychological depth is absolutely fundamental to its enduring power and its universal appeal. It's about much more than just recounting a biblical event. It really reflects the inherent complexity of human psychology.
How so?
Well, think about Matthew's visible hesitation again. Caught between his old life, the money, the comfort, the routine, and this radical, life-altering, completely unexpected invitation from Christ. It symbolizes a universal human resistance, doesn't it? That primal fear of change, that deep-seated apprehension about the unknown.
We all feel that sometimes.
Absolutely. We all experience that pull between the familiar, even if it's flawed, and the potentially transformative unknown. Conversely, Jesus' calm, determined posture, even his almost understated presence, represents the unwavering nature of faith, the certainty of a divine purpose, and the kind of trust that's required to embrace it.
And the others at the table.
And then you have the other figures, each reacting differently, representing that whole spectrum. The two young men lost in their money, seemingly oblivious or just indifferent. Another older figure looking up, maybe with curiosity mixed with skepticism. And the figure right behind Matthew, mostly in shadow, perhaps representing those who remain unseeing or actively resistant. This diverse range of responses, captured with such vivid naturalism, it deeply engages you, the viewer.
Yeah, it makes you think.
It prompts you to reflect on how you would respond to such a profound call in your own life. How would you grapple with an unexpected challenge or an invitation to completely change your path?
And all of this incredible layered meaning, this psychological nuance, it's all supported by his amazing technical skill, isn't it? Every element seems to work together to create that immersive feeling.
Absolutely. The technical decisions are never just decorative with Caravaggio. They're integral to the painting's lasting impact and its powerful narrative. That choice of a mostly dark color palette, the deep browns, blacks, muted greens, rich reds, it reinforces the seriousness, the sacredness of the scene, while also dramatically pushing those illuminated figures forward. They almost feel three-dimensional against that dark void.
They really pop out.
They do.
Yeah.
And the way he meticulously renders the textures, the heavy folds of the fabrics, creating this almost palpable sense of volume using just light and shadow, and the anatomical accuracy of the figures themselves. It all speaks to his intense, almost obsessive observation of the real world around him.
Every detail matters.
Every detail, every body movement, every hand gesture, even the subtle tilt of a head, it all enhances the emotional intensity of the story. Take Matthew's right hand again and on the table, still near the coins, but there's this subtle tension, maybe a slight pulling back, a hesitation. It's a tiny detail, but it's such a powerful symbol of his internal struggle, that precise moment he hears the call, but hasn't yet fully committed to answering it. All these elements combine: the light, the realism, the composition, the psychology, the technique. They all contribute to its enduring power, its revolutionary status, and its timeless appeal as a true masterpiece.
So we've journeyed deep into the calling of St. Matthew. We've explored it not just as a masterpiece of Baroque art, but really as a revolutionary work, revolutionary in its realism, its psychological depth, and absolutely crucial for understanding its historical context. It's such a dramatic, intensely realistic portrayal that genuinely touches the human soul. It examines both the individual and the societal dimensions of a profound call to change. This deep dive on Caravaggio's The Calling of St. Matthew really shows us how art can be both a powerful historical document, a window into a specific time, and also a timeless mirror, reflecting the eternal human condition back at us.
Absolutely. And this painting, in its very profound way, doesn't just present a historical scene from the Bible for you to observe. It actually invites you, the viewer, to grapple with that perennial space. We all inhabit that space between the sacred and the worldly, between faith and doubt, between the comfort of the known and the challenge of the transformative unknown.
Interesting way to put it.
It's not just a historical artwork you admire from a safe distance. It becomes this living, questioning experience that really challenges your own perceptions. So, as you reflect on Matthew's moment of reckoning, caught there between his old life and this completely unforeseen destiny, maybe consider this. What call, big or small, might you be encountering in your own life right now? What might require a similar moment of decision, perhaps pulling you from the familiar darkness of your current situation into a new, maybe challenging, but ultimately illuminating kind of light?
A powerful thought to end on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of a true artistic revolution.